Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everyone and welcome to the first in this year's series of Joliot-Curie Programme webinars for early career academics, and the topic for today is essential skills for academic researchers, which is a topic close to all of our hearts, I think. Just to explain a little bit about who we have on the panel today, we have Rachel Cox, who is the Engagement and Policy Project Manager from Vitae. So Rachel, would you like to say hello and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. Hi. So this is Rachel. I work for Vitae, which is a not-for-profit programme run by the Careers Research and Advisory Centre. And we support the professional development of researchers through enabling them to engage in their own professional development, helping them to recognise professional competencies and promoting access to opportunities. So my role in that is to engage with the research community in the UK and internationally, and to help tackle common challenges that we face as a community through facilitating networks such as Vitae working groups and the UK Research Staff Association, and influencing policy through involvement with initiatives such as the Concordat to support the career development of researchers.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we have got, we're hoping to have Dr. John Harvey from Lancaster University on the broadcast, but he hasn't joined us yet. I'm hoping he will. Ah, is that John?
It is, yes.
Hello, John. You've joined us right at the right moment. I was just introducing you. So, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and say a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm a relatively recent appointee at the Department of Chemistry at Lancaster University. My role entails a mixture of teaching various different sorts of chemistry to students from years 1 through 4, and research. I guess mostly materials oriented and stuff which is in collaboration with folk in biomedical life sciences, engineering, physics, and a variety of other departments. And in addition to this, then there's also an important role that academics play in interacting with industrial partners and external bodies such as the RSC, Society of Chemical Industry, and other professional societies.
Okay, thank you very much, John. And finally, but certainly not least, we have my colleague, Dr. Jonelle Harvey, Nellie for short, so forgive me if I refer to you as Nellie during the broadcast, who is our own professional standards specialist here at the Royal Society of Chemistry. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Julie. Good afternoon, everyone. My main role at the Royal Society of Chemistry is looking after how we support employers, both within industry and universities, with supporting professional development as aligned to our chartered and registered statuses. These awards give recognition for a variety of skills that our members will develop over their careers, and so we help support that through a programme of accreditation.
Okay, thank you very much. And my name's Julie Franklin. I'm going to be chairing this session. I'm a career and professional development advisor at the Royal Society of Chemistry, and I will say a little bit more about the support that my team offers and the sorts of resources that are available through the careers team at the RSC a little bit later on in the broadcast. Now, just to explain a little bit about the Joliot-Curie Programme. The Joliot-Curie Programme is an annual programme that the RSC runs. It's specifically to support postdocs in the chemical sciences who are aspiring to an independent career in academic research. Now, the conference and the other allied activities under the Joliot-Curie Programme all are intended to promote inclusivity and diversity in academia, and they're especially helpful for people who have either experienced or perceived barriers to progress. So we like to think the whole programme is very accessible for people, very friendly, and something that anyone can and everyone can take something from. The programme itself is named for Irene Joliot-Curie, who was a Nobel Prize winner for chemistry in 1935, jointly with her husband Frederick, for their work on artificial radioactivity. And her work on radioisotopes forms the basis of most biochemical research and cancer treatments today, amazingly. Now, Irene is one of our 175 faces of chemistry, and you might find it interesting to go to that web link that's on the screen now and have a look at more about Irene's past history and the other 174 faces to show just the range of people who have made a contribution to the chemical sciences over the years. In terms of the Joliot-Curie Programme, for this year, 2019, the events will include a conference on the 11th to 12th of September, which I'll say a little bit more about at the end of the broadcast, and 2 more webinars. And there's a link on the screen there for you to find out about more activities that we're doing and how you can get involved in them. For the webinar today, our agenda is to broadly look and talk around the following topics. So, essential skills for success in academic research. We're also going to look at those transferable skills. Everyone bandies that term around, but what are they? And which of those transferable skills are the most important in academic recruitment? We're going to ask our experts who have a wealth of experience between them how you can think about developing those skills, how you might identify barriers to progress and either go under them, around them, or ignore them altogether. I think what we're hoping to do is to give you confidence today to take control of your own professional development, which is so important in any walk of life these days. And we're also going to explain a little bit about what support there is on offer from organisations like the RSC and Vitae to help you take control of your professional development. So it's a packed programme, and we're going to start by asking our panel some questions. Towards the end of the broadcast, I will invite you to type in any questions that you might have. So there will be a chance for you to ask our expert panel your burning issues a bit later on. So let's turn to the most important things about essential skills for success in academia. In academic research, I mean, much emphasis is put on the science and the technical aspects of a researcher's role. But of course, this is not the only consideration when appointing research staff to universities. And I think sometimes by focusing too narrowly on their science, some aspiring academics can fail to sort of sell themselves effectively. Because after all, the researcher's approach, so that is not only what they do, but how they do it, is an essential component for the success of any project. And clearly developing the scientific and technical skills is essential, but what other skills should postdocs be thinking about if they are aspiring to an independent career in academic research? Could I ask you for your perspective first, John? What do you think about that?
So I would say that most universities have CV guidance, and they also often publicise the promotion criteria that they have for the staff who work at the institution. And so on the CV guidance, you can get a very good idea for the sorts of things that they're looking at for different levels. And that's also specifically true for the promotions criteria. But I would say if you're really looking to go into academia, one of the obvious things is teaching skills. So if you have the opportunity to obtain Associate Fellowship of the Higher Education Academy during your role as a PhD student or a postdoc, then that's a really good thing, because it helps to de-risk the university when they're interviewing you to say, do you have any experience of teaching? Will you be comfortable teaching? And you have some appreciation of what qualifications are available for you to enhance your teaching skills. Equally, management skills. I think these are absolutely key for research. If you're doing research within a small group of people, you need to be able to have efficient mechanisms in place to ensure that the project is delivered on time, and that's increasingly more important as the project gets more complex. So as it involves people from different departments, from different institutions, or even from industry. And so I think some sort of management qualification is a really good thing to contemplate obtaining. And most universities will offer some degree of project management training through their human resource department. And then it's also, I think, also quite important to be involved in outreach and knowledge exchange activities. And so that would be projects with industrial partners or projects with charities, and then in attempting to explain what you do at the university to the public, so that when they're familiar with you, then they can appreciate the role that taxpayers' money plays in supporting our role in supporting industry, classrooms, and other environments.
That's a very important point, actually. Yes, you know, we forget at our peril that a lot of money for research does actually come from the public purse. So being able to reach out to the community and explain to them what you do is very important. And it's interesting what you say about management skills as well. I mean, if you're an excellent scientist, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're naturally an excellent manager. You know, very often it's, those two skills don't necessarily go together, but everyone can learn and improve. So thanks very much for that, John. How about you, Rachel? What would you think about that?
So when I'm starting off thinking about the types of jobs that I might want to do, a good place to start is to look at the job descriptions that are out there. So don't necessarily just go for things that you are definitely interested in. Take a broad sweep of job descriptions that are out there for academia generally, and then try to observe which are the skills that are coming up most often, which things are mentioned, and what's the language that's being used, because you're going to want to reflect that in the way you both apply for jobs and the way you interview for things. I'm going to take quite a generic, broad sweep at it, because I think that some of the skills that John has just mentioned are really good specific instances. I would say the three things that are the most important are: 1, communication; 2, building relationships; and then 3, the project management skills. So in terms of communication, that's both formally and informally. So you might feel like, oh, do you know what? I don't really need to know how to do a presentation in front of a room of people. But you might come across a situation where you need to explain what it is you're doing to a funder in order to secure that funding, or to get them interested in a project, because at some point you're going to want their input. So that's where those types of skills translate quite easily. Informally as well, in terms of communication, when you're building those relationships with the wider community, you're going to want to communicate exactly what it is that you are after in your career. So where are you going? Who can help you with that? And how can you help them? And that's where networking comes in. So networking can feel a bit artificial and scary, but actually it just means meeting people that are like you somewhere else, doing something slightly different, where you both might be able to mutually help each other move forward with your careers. Project management skills wise, this is probably something that has come up for all of you when you've been doing your PhD, but time management and knowing how to prioritize is essential. So if you find it very difficult to look at such a broad range of things that you have to get done in the day, because we're all very busy, prioritization is a skill that you can practice. You can learn techniques to get through that, and it will really help, especially if you're someone who gets overwhelmed. I would say look into prioritization and time management tips and tricks.
Okay, that's gold-plated advice there. Yes, thank you very much. And interestingly, you're both mirroring and supporting each other's ideas on what are the essential skills. You know, these really are very, very important. And I think in recruitment, when universities are looking to recruit staff, research staff, they will be looking at these things too. So do you think academic recruiters are more aware of the importance of the additional skills that a researcher can bring these days? Do you think academic recruitment models are changing to reflect a broader range of skills? John, what would you have to say on that?
I'd say absolutely yes. So you'd never field a football team of 11 goalies or strikers. And academic departments genuinely realise this. And so they tend to look for kind of a healthy and balanced mix of excellent research, excellent teaching, and engagement with external bodies, be it industry, charities, or other organisations. And so when they look at a CV, they're not simply looking for the number of publications that they have, because they may be looking to fill a role where they need people to be able to teach some specific skill set or some specific subject. And so then you may not need to have 500 papers in one area to demonstrate your excellence in research. If you have a handful of papers in one specific area, that's fine. But then if you have the ability to teach and express your science, then I think that's obviously something that's really key to what they're after. The sorts of things that they would be really interested in would be, I guess, obvious evidence and demonstrable evidence of continuing professional development activities. So teaching qualifications you might have, if you are involved in outreach activities, such as the Royal Society Summer Exhibition, if you do things with the Royal Society of Chemistry, be that with the top of the bench competitions, when you go and talk in public, in any of these roles, then these are the sorts of things that the department will look at, because they know ultimately that they can then rely upon the person that they recruit to be able to engage in these activities. And I think those are some of the sorts of things that that departments are looking at when they're looking to hire.
Thank you very much. And how about you, Rachel? What would you think about that?
So I would definitely like to echo what John said there, that it's not about the number of papers. It's not necessarily about the number of papers or the quality of the journal that you've published in. It's the other things, you know. So you might be amongst many other CVs sitting on the desk of that recruiter who have published, you know, 10 or 12 very good papers, interesting along the same lines. However, they're going to want to see who is out of the ordinary, who's bringing something a bit different that they don't already have in their team, and how are you going to fit into that? So think more broadly about your experience and the things that you've done, because it might be the summer school that you did 2 years ago that will really hook them and reel them in, or it might be some public engagement activities that you've done, or it could be you know, some volunteering activities. So think more broadly about your background and your experience. And I would also like to say that when you're demonstrating what it is that you have done, really try to be concise and show how, don't just say what it is you've done, but demonstrate how that has developed you in terms of your career and in terms of your person as well. Because that really stresses, like, you can see who that person is if you're demonstrating. You're not just saying, I did this training course. You can say, I did this training course, and from that I developed these aspects of myself. That is a lot more impactful than just a list of qualifications. So try and think of it in that way. Also, I would definitely say use your networks. So if you are applying, you're thinking of applying for a position and you're not quite sure from the job advert, like, what is it, who is it that they want in this position? Talk to people. Actually having conversations with the hiring managers or the recruiters themselves, like, you will get an inside track. You know, it doesn't always work, but if you can get hold of those people, then you've already started that relationship. So you're not just a blank piece of paper on a desk, you're actually a real life person. So definitely try to contact them and get more information.
Okay, excellent advice there. I mean, I suppose with my career specialist hat on, you know, we say this to people when they're looking for new jobs in any walk of life. You know, the recruiter doesn't want to recruit your publications record, but they might want to recruit you. You know, it's the person that's going to do the research that is very important here. So I can only echo that and say that that's a great idea. And I mean, I don't want to cast any clouds over this webinar, because it is for people who are aspiring to a career in academic research, but we all know that those positions are quite difficult to come by, and some of you may have to have a plan B. All of these skills that we're talking about today, project management, communication, outreach, networking, they will all benefit you in the longer term, whatever route your career takes. And there are lots of ways that you can expand your network and do things to develop these skills while you're doing your PhD or whatever it is you're doing at the moment, if you make it part of your professional development time each week, each month, to look at what skills are going to be necessary and think about how you can develop them. It really will help you to stand out. So thank you very much for that. And also, I mean, we hear a lot that researcher development is now being included in the requirements of many research funding bids. So what sort of development is required by the funder, and how is that sort of development implemented? Have you got any insights into that, Rachel?
So I can only really talk to this from a kind of an outsider's perspective, having not applied for any funding myself. However, I'd just like to discuss the Concordat, which I mentioned previously. So this is the Concordat to support the career development of researchers. This is being revised at the moment, and there will be specific requirements in there for funders to ask for professional development when looking for new bids, and for PIs to be concentrating on that when they're thinking about putting together their plan for the next couple of years' work, and who they're recruiting and how they're going to develop those people. And I think that just shows you how the focus has changed to move towards the people, not just the outputs of the research, because the researchers themselves, you guys, you are the research pipeline that is going to build this country and that is going to deliver that industrial strategy. So without you, and without the development of you and helping you to grow and have great careers, it's not going to be possible to reach that aim that the government wants. So funders need to drive that through their policies. And I think that that's where we're kind of seeing this shift of emphasis, and that's going to trickle down from leaders of institutions, leaders of research projects, and down to you researchers themselves. So I would definitely say there is a policy shift in that direction.
Okay, that's really interesting to hear. And from your perspective, John, as a senior lecturer, what would you say about that?
I say that there's definitely clear evidence that the funding bodies are asking for these sorts of things already. So if you look at fellowship applications, which you might be contemplating applying for when you're a postdoc, or indeed when you're a member of staff, then they very often have a section which is on, if we're going to pay for you to spend 5 years or 3 to 5 years doing X, what additional value will we get from this? And the additional value would be in perhaps specific management skills training, specific scientific skills training. So if the project, if the fellowship application is for you to transfer from one discipline to another discipline, then you might need a period of time bought out of your role, so you can spend 3 months or 6 months doing a sabbatical at another institution perhaps, or perhaps in industry. And I think these are kind of the fundamental underpinnings of most fellowship applications. And then it's also increasingly in mainstream grant applications where as Rachel suggested, then they're looking for to basically mentor your staff to ensure that they have a really vibrant and varied set of transferable skills when they conclude the role.
That's very encouraging to hear, isn't it? That it's getting to be far more about the person as well as the science. That's excellent news. So, looking at talking to our audience now, they're probably sitting there. They've taken all these messages on board, and they're thinking, what can they do to get a better understanding of the transferable skills that they will actually need to succeed, and how can they take responsibility for developing themselves? So, Rachel, could I ask you first?
Sure. So I'd like to talk a bit about the Researcher Development Framework, which will come up a little bit later in the resources. This is a framework which was developed about 8 years ago now to look at the various skills that all researchers need in order to achieve the kind of level that they want. And it is an extremely extensive framework. It is split into 4 quadrants and it has 63 different descriptors. Now, that might feel a bit overwhelming, and I think that kind of sums up professional development sometimes. It feels like there's so much that you could do that you don't know where to start. So I would say the Researcher Development Framework is a nice way to have a look at what are the skills that may be helpful from an employability perspective, from your scientific excellence perspective, and just think about what you want to develop and where you want to go. So we'll have a look at the RDF in a little while, but you can have a look at the descriptors that are there and maybe pick 4 or 5 that you want to develop or that you see as aligned with your professional competencies at this time, and try to drill down into what you can do more to develop yourself, and how you can express what you've already developed.
Okay, I think that proactive approach is really important. You know, no one is going to develop your skills for you. I think you have to take responsibility for doing it yourself.
Definitely.
So, yeah, I'm going to bring in Nellie now. Would you like to tell us what's available through the Royal Society of Chemistry to help people with this?
Yeah, so at the Royal Society of Chemistry, we have a variety of awards which our members can go for that are all about how you work and how you solve problems and how you develop yourself. So really looking at those transferable skills, and those awards are Chartered Chemist and Registered Scientist status. So if you're in the earlier part of your post-degree journey, then Registered Scientist could be an award which is the one that you should go for. And then if you're a bit more experienced and looking to move to the next level, then Chartered Chemist status is the award that you might want to look at. Our professional awards are really based around 5 key skill areas, which include things like how you develop your skills and how you use them, how you communicate with others and work with others, how you might plan and organise your work as well as working well by yourself, a piece around health and safety, and then finally being a good chemistry citizen and giving something back. John mentioned earlier that being involved in outreach type activities is really good to see on a CV. So if you went for Chartered Chemist status, one of the criteria is tell us of when you've given back to the community. And so that's an opportunity to really focus your efforts there and show us that evidence of how you meet that, which you can then use in other applications, job applications, funding applications going forward. So I think the professional development awards that we have are a good overview of everything that we've covered so far, and it gives you something that you can actively work towards and achieve within a few years where relevant.
Okay, thank you. And I think those frameworks for the RSC Awards, you can see them as a way to develop yourself as well as getting an award at the end of it. Yes. You know, you will get an awful lot out of following those frameworks and developing the skills as they are described. But as usual with everything else in life, you know, nobody ever said this was going to be easy. And there are numerous barriers to skills development for researchers, some of which are you know, easily overcome and some of which are not so easily overcome. So I'm going to come to John first this time. Hello, John. Are you still there?
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, you went quiet for a moment.
Yes, sorry, I was worried that you'd left us there, but no, I can hear you fine again now. We're just talking about the biggest barriers to skills development for researchers. So I'm going to come to you, John, as a practicing academic. You must see this day in and day out, and maybe you've encountered it yourself. So what would you say are the biggest barriers to skills development for researchers?
I think in reality, time is the biggest, because you've got so many different responsibilities to juggle that it's very easy just to put your professional development off. It's certainly something I did as a postdoc. I kind of ignored some of the opportunities that were available for me, and then subsequently regretted it when I started as an academic. So I think time is definitely one. I guess resources, if the institution or department where you're working at doesn't offer those sorts of things, then you might have to look outside of the institution, or you might have to look outside of the organisation you work in order to obtain those skills. Most universities have a fairly well-defined, or have fairly well-defined training schemes through human resources, and that's certainly one of the very good things about Lancaster University. But it's obviously very much dependent upon if you're in industry or academia as to what's available. And then encouragement, I think, as well. Obviously, you have a line manager, and you've got to meet certain targets for the line manager to be happy with you and help you progress to the next stage. And so their focus might be very, very much different from your own. And I think it very much depends upon who your manager is as to how much freedom and time you have to do this. And again, luckily, my kind of line manager is really supportive, and I've got lots of flexibility to do more or less what I want, which is really nice.
That's great. Yeah, no, thank you very much. Rachel, what do you hear about being the biggest barriers to skills development?
Yeah, time. Time is always the one. I think we generally live in a society where no one has any time.
That's very true.
However, I would say that this is really important for your career and for your personal development, and you will have a more satisfying career if you look at your professional development early on and you make a plan. You won't always be able to do the things that you want to do straight away, but if you have a plan in place, at least you know a path to follow. I think one of the barriers is that it feels a bit overwhelming, especially if you don't have a very supportive line manager or a network of people that are kind of similarly invested in their professional development. So I would say try and find a group of people through either postdoc associations or mentoring circles. So that's where you have peers who are going through the same thing, who will get together and discuss those similar challenges and work on their professional development together. Or look to find a mentor outside of your institution or within industry if you're interested in going down that track. I think that support network is really helpful in getting you over those initial kind of, oh, I really don't know where to start with this. There's so much going on. I'm so busy. If you have someone to discuss it with, it suddenly becomes a lot clearer. So it really does pay off to kind of take that time to do some self-reflection and to write a professional development plan. Please do it. It's so useful.
Okay, thank you. That's great advice there. Again, with my career specialist hat on, it's not just people in academia who suffer with lack of time problems for developing themselves. And I think because generally, culturally, and as scientists, we're not very good at thinking about ourselves, are we? You know, we're always thinking about other people and the project and the science. You know, we're not very good at thinking about ourselves. But what I say to people during career consultations is this is not time that is wasted or self-indulgent. It's an investment. It's an investment of you in yourself. So do set aside some quality time, whatever you can spare, you know, an hour a week, a couple of hours a fortnight, something like that, where you lock the world away and you just focus on finding out some of the things that we've been talking about today, sort of looking at job adverts for the kind of job that you want to get and thinking, how close am I to meeting those requirements? What can I develop? And then keeping some kind of a record, using whatever support there is available to show how your skills are developing. That demonstration of self-awareness when you come to apply for jobs, whatever they might be, comes across really well and comes across as very mature to recruiters. It shows you are the kind of person who does take responsibility for their own development and is actually proactive and does something about it. So believe me, it really is not self-indulgent time. It is time you really, really need to ring fence, quality time to think about yourself, where you want to go and how you can get there. We know, as with everything else in life, lots of things, a bit of luck is involved. But if you follow the guidelines and listen to the advice you're given today, sometimes you can make your own luck. And I think a lot of life, you know, it's about that really. You do it by being proactive, knowing where you are and knowing where you want to get to, and knowing who can help you. You know, what's out there to help you and support you. So don't be afraid to ask your network for help and support if you need it, or you know, whoever you think might be able to help you best. So on that very subject, we're going to turn now to what sort of resources, practical resources are out there to help and support researchers to plan and record and reflect on their own professional development and skills. And Rachel, earlier on, you talked about the Vitae framework. I'm going to put the slide up on the screen now so that people can see a little bit about it. There we go. Well, right, we have the Vitae Researcher Development Framework up on the screen now. So would you like to talk us through it, please, Rachel?
Sure. So you can see the wheel there on the right-hand side. Some of you might be familiar with the wheel. You may not associate it with Vitae or with the Researcher Development Framework, but that's what it is. And that's kind of what we base all of the work that we do for researchers and for institutions. We base it on that knowledge from the wheel. This was built from very thorough research, looking at what are the skills that employers and institutions need from their researchers in order to kind of get that research excellence that their country is after. And I think this is quite a nice way to consider all of the different options that are available for a researcher. So you'll see in the centre there, there's the 4 domains. So engagement, influencing and impact, knowledge and intellectual abilities, which I feel like knowledge and intellectual abilities will be something that you will be very familiar with and upon in regards to your scientific knowledge. Personal effectiveness is a lot around your own organisation, time management, self-reflection, and then research governance and organisation, which is something that you're gaining experience from through kind of work experience. So that's something that can be gained kind of later on. You can use lenses, so on the Vitae website, which I'll talk a bit more about in a second, it can scale down those 63 descriptors and hone in on the ones that may help you in regards to, say, for example, public engagement, employability, and actually I believe there's a chartered chemist lens for the RDF. Is that correct, Julie?
Yes. That'll be Nellie who'll answer that one, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Nellie.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to do the chartered chemist, then you can look at the RDF to help you with that. So it is a really great place to start, but obviously it's massive, and so it feels a bit scary. So I would recommend looking at the Professional Development Planning Researchers online course, which is freely available. It's on the Vitae website, and it takes you through step-by-step kind of self-reflective process. I would say it probably takes about an hour and a half, but it really gets you to think about where it is you are right now and where it is you want to get to, so that you can focus in on which parts of that wheel you want to develop for yourself. You know, do you want to teach? Do you want to engage in policy? Do you want to lead on projects? And it will help you to kind of build that plan up, which you can then take forward. So that's a really fantastic resource. There's also quite a number of career stories and case studies on the Vitae website, which can give you some ideas. Oh, fantastic. And now we're on to the next slide. So this is what you'll find if you go to vitae.ac.uk and you click on I'm a researcher. It will take you to this page where you can see PDP Rock, which is the Professional Development Planning Researchers online course. Bit of a mouthful. There's also a great deal of CVs that you can have a look at. The CV section is our most popular section, and that is academic CVs and industry-based CVs. And you can think about it from all the way from like starting your doctorate all the way through to a senior career level as a researcher. So there's quite a broad range of resources for everybody at every career stage. So just have a look around on it. And if you are interested and you want to get involved, or you're not sure where to go for something, then you can email us because we are always happy to help.
Okay, and then we have another slide from Vitae, which is just...
So this is, it's a bit of what we do.
Okay. Right, I would say to anyone who's listening, who's finding this useful, it's a lot to write down and take in all in one go. We are going to put a recording of this webinar up on our website, and I will show you how you can find that more towards the end of the broadcast. So you can listen all over again. You can recommend that your friends who maybe couldn't join us today, or your colleagues, will be able to find it and listen at a later date. So thank you very much for that, Rachel. Now, again, going back to resources, Nellie, what can we offer people from the RSC?
So the first thing that I will just dwell on a little bit more with the professional awards that we have for chartered status, for example, or the registers, is that they give you a framework related to the RDF in some ways. There's some crossover between the different skills that you would want to develop for both. But often our members find that having a set plan, as in, I need to demonstrate these particular skills for my chartered status, or completing work towards the RDF, is a really good way of focusing development, and our members find that it's an excellent way to focus other people's attention, such as their manager's thoughts, because they know they've got something discrete and concrete that the person is working towards. They can help work with them to identify where the gaps are, and then they know when they've met them. It's pretty obvious, because then you as the candidate will have evidence against the particular skill that you're looking for. So our members find it great benefit to use a framework, whether that's something like the RDF or chartered or registered status, or both, as a way of framing those discussions. John and Rachel both mentioned time being an issue, and again, having a focus to those developmental discussions in such a way where there will be a time frame, i.e. you want to achieve this award by 2 years, then you can plan it out and know when you're meeting it. Covering other support that we have through applying for these awards, you will be mentored throughout the process, and mentoring is something that John mentioned earlier. And mentoring is really important to be able to help you progress in all manner of things. But for things like our awards, there is a specific mentoring element to that, and that usually is someone within your organisation. It could be your manager, or it could be a different person of a similar level. If it is your manager, it's an excellent way of really focusing those developmental discussions at a time when you probably need to. We also have online development guidance and planning through our CPD link that you can see there. We also have our online CPD recording tool that you can use just to capture all the different learning examples that you've had. And remember, everyone, that CPD is not just going on a course. It's anything and everything which makes you a better and more professional at what you're doing, whether that's practicing existing skills or developing new ones. We also have approved training courses. I've mentioned that training courses isn't everything that CPD is, but it is a component. If you go onto our link and you can see what training courses are available there, we have a process whereby we can examine training courses that providers might put on, and they could be something quite technical, or they could be based more around the skills that you want to develop, such as the communication or managing. And we've assessed them through our peer review model, where people, you will know that it's quality course that you are getting, and you do get a benefit of a discount on those courses being a member. Going back towards our chartered status, we have a variety of resources on our website. You can see Julie's put that up there, including various webinars, guidance documents. We also offer consultations for the registers and chartered status. There's that mentoring part that's really beneficial and part of that process. But also, if you have any questions about the professional awards, you can always get in touch with us, and the links are on that website there.
Okay, thank you, Nellie. Okay, I'm going to ask one last thing to each of our panel members now. But while they're answering, if you have any questions that have occurred to you while you've listened to our very knowledgeable speakers today, please feel free to type them in. And when they've answered my final question, I should see your questions popping up on my screen here, and I will be able to put those to the panel. So please feel free to type in any questions you might have. And the last thing that I'm going to ask our panel today now is that if they had one piece of advice to offer an early career researcher at this point in their career, what would it be? So John, can I come to you first? What would your piece of advice be?
First, it would be to invest a significant amount of time in planning what you intend to do next. So if you're applying for jobs, make sure you've downloaded the job descriptions and worked out how you can maybe not tick the relevant boxes, but how you can demonstrate your capabilities that you should fulfill the job. And I guess another thing which is really important is demonstrate your ability to work with other people, and not necessarily people immediately within your discipline, but also people who are at the interface of other disciplines. Because if you're working in research at the university, there's lots of funds which are available for research at the interface of different disciplines. And so the ability to communicate and work alongside people of different disciplines and produce either teaching resources or research resources is really, really invaluable.
Okay, thank you very much. Nellie, what would your one piece of advice be?
My one piece of advice would be to put yourself first. And by that, echoing what Julie said at the beginning of this webinar, it's not to focus on your outputs, but to think of who you are as an individual and really prioritise that throughout your career. Often people will, without hesitation, take from you in terms of involvement in projects, whether that's writing papers or attending conferences. But I really want you to think about what's in it for me. Is that the best thing that is going to develop my skills, that's going to take me, as John says, where I need to go with my career plan? So really think about yourself, not just your results and not just your qualifications, but the rest of you. What goes into you, and put that first.
Thank you very much. And finally, Rachel, what would your one piece of advice be?
Well, those two were fantastic pieces of advice. So I do have to kind of change tact at what I was going to say, but I think when you're early on in your career, just don't be too drilled down in your thinking. Try and be broad and consider the other opportunities that may be out there. If you have your head down and you're just focusing on this one thing that you're doing, you might miss the chance to do something amazing. When you're early on in your career, you don't really know what it is that you enjoy and what it is that is going to give you the most satisfaction, because you haven't had the opportunity to experience lots of different things. So make sure that you do pick up on the opportunities and you do try different things and different ways of doing things, so that you have got that kind of confidence that this is what I want to do and that is where I want to go. Because you won't be able to make a plan if you don't feel like you know where you want to go.
Excellent. Nellie, you've got something else to say
just
there. Yeah.
To echo Rachel's point, it's so essential to recognise that whatever it is of the career that you currently have right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's the way the rest of your working life is going to go. You have lots of opportunities ahead of you, lots of options and routes you can go down. Don't make the mistake of pigeonholing yourself thinking this is my area. As Rachel says, absolutely be more broad, because science is forever changing and the pace of change is picking up more and more with every year that passes, and you might find that your career trajectory might take you somewhere that you had never imagined up till this point.
I think Nellie and I are both testament to that. Actually, we're both chemists originally, and now we're still chemistry related, but we do jobs that we didn't anticipate doing when we were taking our qualifications. Okay, thank you very much for that. We have had one question that's come in, and I think it refers back to an earlier remark about. The question is actually, where does the number of 10 to 12 publications come from? Now, I think that may have been...
Sorry, that was me.
Is that was that just a random number, or is there any, or is that a number that people need to be aware of?
So from my point of view, it was a random number of things that you can fit on a page.
Okay.
So thinking about a CV, there is a tendency for academics or people wanting to become academics to write extremely long CVs that don't get to the point and actually don't have a lot of substance in them. They're just lists of stuff. So that's kind of why I said 10 to 12, that's a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so it was kind of an illustrative remark. Yeah, John, you've got something to say?
Yeah, when you're looking at on jobs.ac.uk, for some universities, Imperial comes to mind certainly, then they have a list, so they ask you to list your top 5 papers. So, and the reason that they're asking you to list 5 papers is, and this might obviously be revised, but every 6 years the government come along and they kind of weigh your soul and they measure you ahead and ask you about the quality of your research. And your research publications, or some of them at least, maybe somewhere between 1 and 5 of those will get returned as part of this research excellence framework assessment. And so you need to demonstrate, I guess, good quality research on at least one of your publications in the last 6 years for it to be submissible for the ref. And those criteria have recently changed. So for the next ref, you need to at least have 1 paper which is of really high quality. But then I guess the other papers that you might list in your CV could demonstrate your ability to work in teams, your ability to work between different disciplines. And I think it's much less now about the number of papers you've got, and it's more about your ability to work in teams and your ability to do really interesting research at the interface of different disciplines.
Okay, thanks very much. We've had a couple more questions, and this is an interesting one. Would you give any different advice to senior postdoc researchers? So, John, can I come back to you on that one? What would you think about that?
So I spent 10 years in postdoc purgatory, and I'll say, I guess one of the things that I did increasingly is hop disciplines and get lots of different experiences, because I thought that broadened my scientific horizons and offered me a lot of different opportunities. And I really enjoyed the final opportunity to work as a postdoc on an industry-funded project, because that gave me a completely different perspective on how projects should work. And I think also, don't focus on only one university or only one location. Be really flexible about where you would apply to. I don't think it's very uncommon for you to get the first job that you applied for. The first job I applied for, I was interviewed for, but it was a complete disaster. And that disaster helped shape the way I think, and helped me prepare much more rigorously in the future for the other jobs I applied for. So I would say use the first couple of interviews as an opportunity to hone your technique and understand what the universities are really looking for. So I would say networking is really key. Collaborating with different people is really key, and maybe demonstrating that you have some teaching skills as well. So if you've got associate fellowship at the Higher Education Academy, that's a first step on the ladder, because all universities now are taking part in the Teaching Excellence Framework, which is another kind of unit of metric that the government's going to assess us by. And so that's something that they can return as part of their teaching, as part of their TEF return.
Okay, thank you. We've had another one that's quite similar, but I am going to ask it. Someone is saying, what if you've been in the early stages of your career, in inverted commas, for a long time? So I guess that's a similar kind of question. So would anyone like to come in on that one?
If I could take a different angle on it. So I would say that if you've been doing something for a while and you feel like you're not getting anywhere, try looking at it from a different angle and try broadening your view of things, because it can feel quite pigeonholing when you've been doing something for a long time. People think they know you and you think you know yourself, but actually, if you look at it from a different angle, you may see that you have developed these skills that you didn't realize, and that can take your career in a different direction. So if you feel like you're not getting anywhere, try and shake things up a bit. I would definitely say use your networks. And if you feel like you don't have a developed network, go and seek out people. LinkedIn is fantastic. I use it for stalking all the time, professional stalking. But it's a great way to meet people in the industry, gain new knowledge and new perspectives, and it can make you think about your own career a bit differently.
Okay, Nellie, you had something to say on that one too.
Yeah, so really echoing Rachel's comment around looking at things a different way. One question that we get asked a lot of people thinking about chartered status is, oh, how do I know I'm working at the right level? And so this applies to you. if you feel like you've been in the early part of your career for a long time, think about where you are today, then think about where you were last year, and then the year before, and the year before that, and go all the way back to when you first started all of this. And I want you to really think about how you have grown and developed. You are not the same person today as you were 5 years ago, and think about why that is and how that is and how that has changed. And as Rachel says, that could give you a different way of looking at things, because even though you might feel that perhaps you've been treading water for a little bit, you are operating differently, and of course you are. We are human, we learn every day. Even if you are literally doing the same type of experiments or the same work today as you were last year, I bet you today you'll be doing it in a different way, in a better way, that you'll have better learning to be able to take forward. So really think about the journey that you've already taken to figure out where you want to go moving forward.
That's a fantastic piece of advice. Thank you, Nellie. There's one last question that's come in, and I think this is specifically for Nellie. Someone is asking, do you need to be a chemist stroke RSC member in order to apply to be a registered scientist?
So in order to apply for any of our professional awards, so these are the awards that people can get through the Royal Society of Chemistry, you will need to be a member of the appropriate category. And in respect of the registers, you will need to be in science. For chartered chemists, you would need to be in the chemical sciences. You will have noticed there's a difference there, and that's because the registers in their full title are registered scientist and registered science technician. So by their very definition, they're a bit more broad than just chemistry. So if you're in something that's really interdisciplinary, or that you've come from a different educational background but you're now doing something that's a bit more chemistry, then you could probably do these awards via ROS. Registered scientist is probably a good place to start before moving on to chartered chemist status as your career progresses. You cannot become a chartered chemist unless you are a full member or a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry. However, any of you that are listening on the webinar that aren't RSC members, then other professional bodies do offer equivalent awards. So the registers are offered for biologists and physicists through the Royal Society of Biology and the Institute of Physics respectively, and all three of us offer our own chartered designations. There are, of course, plenty of other professional bodies for whatever discipline you find yourself in, and we all have very similar professional awards, so there is something for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And you can find out more about that if you're interested on our website. Now, time has run away with us, so I just want to take you through a few more links and resources to help you, if you are an RSC member, get the most out of your membership. The RSC does actually have a research fund, and whilst we don't provide whole project funding, you know, that amount of money, we have got small amounts of money available for equipment and travel and that kind of thing. And sometimes applying for these smaller grants and being successful can help you build up confidence when you have to come to apply for the larger project type grants later on in your career. I'd also like to highlight the RSC Chemist Community Fund. Now, that's a very underrepresented service, I think. You know, it's very much there to help people with aspects of their day-to-day life as a professional, and certainly help in times of trouble. But they are offering grants for things like carers grants now, so that if you have caring responsibilities and will find it difficult to go to networking events or conferences, do please investigate that link that's on the screen now, because there is money available to help you. And I'd also draw your attention to the RSC's Early Career Network, which spans the world really, and includes people at an early stage of their career. They are all RSC members. They might be in academia, they might be in industry, but it's a great way a friendly way as well to expand your network.
We also have funding available for those of you contemplating any outreach projects.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Thank you for that, Nellie. I mentioned the Joliot-Curie Conference. That's part of the Joliot-Curie activities for this year. It's the 11th to 12th of September this year at the University of Nottingham in the UK. It's going to be a fantastic event. We've got some absolutely wonderful speakers from all career stages who've overcome all sorts of difficulties and problems and barriers to become successful. It's a great opportunity to showcase your work and to network in a very friendly and non-competitive environment. It's designed to help you build your confidence, and you can see the web link on the screen there. Please do register to come along. It's very modest. It only costs £25 to come for both days, so I would thoroughly recommend that. And also we have 2 more webinars this year. We have one on how international experience can help your academic career, which will be in October, and also looking at aspects of the academic workplace culture and how that may or may not work for you at certain times during your career. So we would hope to have some of you along to those as well. Just to finish up, like I said at the beginning, I am one of the career and professional development advisors with the RSC. We have a full team of people who are there to help you with all the sorts of things that are on the screen at the moment. If you want more information about how we can help you, there's our web link on the bottom there. That's rsc.org careers, or you can drop us an email, careers@rsc.org, and we'd be very pleased to hear from you. So it just remains for me to thank you all very much for listening and wish you the best of luck. And also to say thank you very much to our panel today. So if you'd all like to say goodbye, Rachel, would you like to say cheerio to everyone?
Yes, thank you very much. It was really great to be here.
All right, and thank you very much for your contribution, John.
Yep, thanks. It was a great opportunity to chat to you, the other panel members, and then the rest of the world.
Lovely. Yeah, thank you very much, John. And Nellie?
Thank you, everyone. It's been a good webinar for me, some learnings that I've taken away. I went to one of the first Joliot-Curie conferences as an early career stage academic myself, and I found it invaluable. So I highly recommend that for everyone.
And if you do come along, you'll certainly get to meet me there and some other members of RSC staff as well. So we'd hope to see some of you there. So it just remains for me to, again, thank you all for listening. Thank you to our panel, to wish you all the very best of luck. Again, if you want any help with career guidance at all, do email the careers team, careers@rsc.org, and we'll be happy to help you. So thank you, goodbye, and the best of luck to you all.